Skateboarding is just such a notch up from a lot of sports as far as how tough you have to be to get that good. I think that in a lot of ways it gives you strength for the rest of your life.
In order to achieve greatness, you have to go through a lot of pain. You definitely have setbacks, but in order to achieve that success, you have to push through. You're going to have to battle injury.
That's my friend Danny. At these, at these levels, everybody is so good that what distinguishes you is rarely your gifts, but it's how you apply them and your ability to handle failure, because there's a lot of it. I'd like to share a little bit about that and how it shapes us in return, because I think it transcends skateboarding. But first, a little perspective on where I'm coming from with a criminally indulgent video.
Getting second to him was like getting first. Nobody deserved to ever take his spot.
And that's when the rumors flew that he was practicing 9 hours a day. And we're going, 9 hours a day, how's that possible?
When we would go on tour, he would just go out 2 in the morning. We'd, arrive at the hotel. I'm going skating. What the?
Back in the 80s, contest pretty much decided your life as a pro, which eventually put me on a treadmill of practicing trying to win all the time. My own fear of failure and the expectations of others weighed heavy, which forced me to focus on consistency rather than striving after new ideas, which is really what drove me from the start. And that part's more insidious than you might seem, because in order to sustain that level for that long, like at that high, that edge, you have to pull for something deeper, something I think this audience knows well. By the 90s, guys started to take these early flat ground tricks and project them onto the environment around them. Stairs, handrails, ledges, all of it opened up the dimensionality that defines us. Well, in order for me to adapt, I had to abandon what defined me and start all over again, which was rough. Even worse, basic skill sets had to be unlearned and then paved over, which embedded this rotten sort of somatic dialect. Like, I looked terrible doing it. And even worse, I was well known. So I basically just kind of sucked in public for like years. Yet by embracing that loss and embarrassment, that paved the way to the best years in my life, skating. And worse than that, like, if I had not done, when you don't go after what you know you can do, that stuff eats at you. It does. I see too much of that. Fear of failure preempts you from becoming what you could be, which is the greatest loss of all. I defended a world title 35 times over a decade, so I can safely say that winning can feel indistinguishable from losing. It can. Failure is protean in nature, and so is success. By not reaching out into the unknown, abandoning what you know in order to delve into new ideas, that's the essence of striving, which is the undergirding of success. And the road to that is built on a bedrock of failure for most of us. Whether you're testing new light bulbs or testing new rockets, building new rockets, failure can take many different forms. Now for us, sometimes we have to heal for months before we get another shot at a trick. And that in turn, it drives us nuts the whole time. Madness ensues. One dude needed surgery on his toe, so feeling the weight of a deadline, he asked the doctor just to cut it off. That's when the doctor explained to him that he'd have to relearn how to walk again, if so. And that kind of madness is pervasive because pain distorts reality for us. And unless you're able to detach from that, then you can get more clarity. By detaching from that, you gain more clarity on how to navigate failure so it becomes more sustainable. These are a bunch of my friends. All of us tend to be kind of outsiders who seek a sense of belonging, but only on our own terms. We all share a kind of common language, though each of us tries to distinguish ourselves through our individual expression of them. We're very much of an open source community in the sense that the greater our contribution through the tricks we create, the more we embed what we do into the language others use to express themselves. That weaves us into the fabric as a whole and gives us a sense of belonging, which doesn't come easily for us, a sense of lasting permanence. How do you practice stuff that can get you killed? It's often said the best skaters are the best fallers, and it's pretty good evidence of that. Through a paradigm of managing failure on a sustainable basis, you develop a kind of predictive acumen. It's not that Jamie's reactions are so great. He's able to anticipate what's going wrong and act accordingly in an automatic way. That same sort of awareness gives him the clarity to hold on even when he's a little off, and you can see that. He's only grinding on his back truck on this first couple, which can pitch you to the back of your head. But he had the wherewithal to bring it down, which bridges the gap to the ultimate make, and that in itself separates good skaters from great. It's these nuances that you have to learn. Now, yeah. Now, these same somatic awareness, these subtleties, are so finely tuned that the first to fall out of tune when practice begins to wane. And you see that. If you've been off your board for a little bit, you throw a few tricks and they basically fall into place. It's surprising. And that gives you a false sense of confidence because the next thing you know, you start tweaking your ankle, you get hurt. Because you lose that fine-tuned awareness of exactly where you and your board will be exactly in the moment of commitment. That leads to a cycle of injury and downtime and re-injury that's retired more great pros than I can begin to count. Point being, the subtleties of these awarenesses, that's what keeps you from catastrophic failure. Very subtle. That's Day One's song. For me and a lot of skaters, like that is what balance looks like. Which is really just a composite of knowing the parameters of what's holding you up, and then an intuitive sense, a feel for your range of recoverability, and a willingness for this kind of level is to get right up on that edge. You just feel that, you know that, where you can pull yourself back in. What's also a great visual for what it takes to navigate within the boundaries of sustainable failure. Because without that sense of balance and nuance awareness, one small slip can really lead you to catastrophic failure, to a point of no return. It comes out of nowhere. Having spent so much time around scares like that, I've become more hardened in the conviction that the biggest obstacle to creativity is breaking through the barrier of disbelief. 4-minute mile is often cited, which happens all the time in skateboarding, where all the best dudes are striving after one particular trick. Finally, one lands it, puts it on YouTube, and seriously, within weeks, dudes out of nowhere are doing it. And the insult to injury part is a lot of them aren't that good, at least, for these levels. Because rarely is it a question of talent or technique, again, at that level, but one of the will to do something that no one else has done before. That's different. That's rarer than talent. And fear of failure is poison to that.
You may write me down in the history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me down in the very dirt, and still like the dust I'll rise. Does my happiness upset you? Why all the rest with gloom? 'Cause I laugh like I've got an oil coming in my living room. So you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, and I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise, rise.
Nearly every trick you've seen so far takes hours, if not days, if not longer. The vast majority of what we do is fall and get back up again, which shapes us proportionally, both as individuals and as a community. Today, most companies are owned or operated, at least at crucial junctures, by pro skaters or dudes that have lived a life. So what that means is when you're signing whatever contract that determines the next years of your life, both sides know what's expected of them. We know, or I should say they know, they have to keep paying you sometimes for months on end for doing nothing but hobbling around on crutches, just hoping you've even seen a doctor. And you know you have to go right back to it and push back into what took you out and go even further. This up-close and personal relationship with risk and consequence, that's what makes us function so well as a community. There's a mutual understanding for what we have to do and what it takes to do it. This may come as a surprise to you. Skating can be hard on your body. In my case, 30 years or so of just the falls, the hours, the miles, generated so much scar tissue that the doctor likened it to what he sees in front-end collisions where the femurs smash into the pelvis and explode. He then described this procedure where they put you to sleep and they tie you to more or less a boat crank and click, click, right? The problem is, it tears the bad stuff with the good stuff, and they can't control that. So he essentially said, you're done. So I went home, and I just kept thinking, and that was eating me up. Long story short, I spent thousands of medievally brutal hours tearing apart every last adhesion until I broke my femur free from my hip. All I wanted to do was really walk without a cane. But in the process, not only could I skate again, but somehow I cracked open a door that opened access to tricks that I had a hard time even being named, because in the process of breaking the bones free, I also broke a little assumption buried within our nomenclature that gave me access to a different type, slightly different approach that meant everything to me. In fact, even when I could, years prior, go back to skating regularly, I couldn't even draw myself to it because I was so obsessed with that idea. That's what makes us who we are. That's what's given me everything I have. And I'm no different. This is Jamie Thomas. This is one of my favorites. He came out west to follow his dreams of becoming a pro skater. Didn't take long before he was homeless and not only not accepted, to some extent, maybe even mocked. He persisted, just being Jamie. Today, on top of his hallowed place within the community, his companies are so admired and respected that Ernst & Young made him an Entrepreneur of the Year. That guy. You've already met Danny. Well into his career, he broke his neck, essentially. Yeah. Not even doing anything crazy, just messing around, you know? He wasn't healing, and army doctors couldn't help him. So he sought out other means. The term witch doctor was bandied about. Real doctors, I think from Scripps, they warned him, this guy tugs on your neck wrong, then you could be paralyzed. Danny, being Danny, he went for it. Soon he's back on his board. Today, I think he's done more to change skateboarding after the injury than before. Maybe even because of the injury. Those are just a couple of dudes within the community. There's plenty more. These are some who've taken it far outside the community, from winning Academy Awards to multiple Grammys to even running one of our finest academic institutions, really. Where I'm going with this is, while the working knowledge for success in whatever endeavor is always available, it's these subtleties in teaching ourselves how to learn, especially handle failure, that form the basis of the resilience and intuition you need to work within that framework. Furthermore, what ultimately propels you is just a love for what you're doing anyway, abiding respect for the ethos that binds you as a community. Anyway, hope it can translate to something you do. Thank you for listening.